Hi, my name is Alex Marshall and today I'm going to be talking about politics and fixing a door. I hope you can see me okay. Maybe I should put you. Is this better? Look, I haven't planned anything for this video, but I feel like it's something, like talking about politics. I'm talking about politics today. And it's something that I'm super passionate about because I believe everyone should talk about politics. And I'll tell you why. A lot of people are just like, I don't get into politics. I don't do politics. Politics isn't my thing. I get it. Politics can be scary, confusing, and complicated, and it feels a lot easier just to say, oh, it's too much for me. There's too much fighting and too much. Like, I get that. I absolutely get it. But this is the sort of thing I want to do with this channel, is make politics more accessible to people, and explain it in more simple terms and in less aggressive terms than we often hear about politics in. Yeah, it's scary, it's uncomfortable, and it often involves talking about it feels like an attack on our identity if someone disagrees with us. And I'm not going to lie, sometimes it is an attack on people's identity. It is an attack on someone's identity if you think trans people don't exist. Yeah, so I get it. But it does come from a position of privilege, usually, to if you have the choice to not talk about politics. We absolutely have to talk about politics and the government because it literally governs our everyday lives. Everything we can and can't do, everything we do and don't have access to, is determined by the government. The roads we drive on, the places that we can and can't travel, the things we can and can't build or buy, or our rights, our individual rights to marry, for freedom of speech and freedom of expression. There's everything is affected. Whether or not we're allowed to be discriminated against, it's all determined by the government. The government can take away rights and give rights, and it can give access and freedoms and meet or not meet needs. There's so many things, everything, it absolutely covers everything. And I know people know this, but it's something that I don't think that sinks in for a lot of people, and it definitely, for me, it didn't sink in the past. And we have to pay attention because I think another thing people just assume is we will keep progressing. There will always be progress. We'll keep going forward. Things will always be getting better, like generally. It will only get better if we make it get better. And so we can't just assume progress. We can't just assume that all of our needs and rights that are met today will continue to be met, because they can be taken away. That is possible. And I don't want to fearmonger or anything. I just believe that everyone needs to be part of the conversation. I forgot to add, I want everyone to be part of this conversation, or as many people as possible, because the people who have the most say and the most power at the moment over policy and politics are generally they're men, white, cis, straight, able-bodied, wealthy. And while these people have a place and have a right to have a say in politics, it's the power that people in those groups have is not proportionate to the amount of those people in the population. We want all kinds of people and all types of people to have a say and have a place in the discussion and have input and be able to advocate for all kinds of people. The more people who are part of the conversation, the better outcomes we can have. Okay, so here are a couple of tips on how to talk about politics. This is probably not the best way to fix this door, but anyway. You can start by looking online, just doing your own independent research, watching videos. Videos are really great, reading different things, and hearing people's opinions without having to give yours. It doesn't have to start with not having a conversation, but just listening. And then I believe we really need to talk about politics within friend groups, within families, just general people. I don't think it should be a taboo topic at all, because again, it affects us all. We all need to be talking about it. It's really important. So when we talk about politics in person with each other, I think it's a great idea to start by, without the mindset that it's going to be a debate, and more the mindset that it's going to be a conversation. You can do this by saying, I've heard a lot about this issue, I'd love to know sort of what you think because I don't have an opinion on it yet. Something like that. Because then it's easier if you come in without a solid or a certain opinion or view, then a change in your view, a change in what you know and learning is less of an attack on your identity and more just about growth. And then it's also important to talk about what you do agree on. Maybe you both agree governments have the responsibility to meet all human rights. You may agree on that and then disagree on how that actually works, what that looks like in practice. If you're talking more about ways to achieve a goal instead and agreeing on the goal, and then you're just disagreeing on the course of action, how that should be actually implemented, what that should look like, how the government meets people's human rights. But it's a much less of an attack on your identity and a lot easier to talk about. And then it's also, I believe, really good to talk about positives. Compliment the other person, say, oh, I really like, you seem really well researched, or that's quite an interesting opinion, I've never heard that before, or I really like how you explain yourself, those kind of things. And only say them if they're true, but again, try and be, these conversations should not be focused just on negatives and not just be focused on what you disagree on. You've got to talk about good things and what you do agree on. So then it gives an atmosphere that after this conversation you'll be fine. It's not the end of the world. You don't hate each other now. You just disagree on something, which is okay. And again, with going in with the mindset that it's an inquiry, a discussion, you have to be open to be wrong, have to be open to learn and grow and admit mistakes, because that's okay. And it's actually a really good thing. Everyone has to be wrong about something, and I think a lot of people are wrong about a lot of things. That includes myself. I've been wrong about a lot of things. And so the intelligent person admits their mistakes. This intelligent person has been wrong more often, or knows they've been wrong more often. And the person who doesn't have room to grow or doesn't have room to learn is the person who has never been wrong. And that's something that's super important to remember. And then a couple of disclaimers. A lot of people, especially people who are minorities, have this conversation fatigue. So it's not one individual person's responsibility to educate you. An Indigenous person doesn't have to have a discussion with you about race. They don't have to, and they can't represent an entire community, entire cultural cultures, because by the way, Indigenous cultures are all quite varied and different. There's a lot of them. It's not the one homogenous culture, just as a thing to add there. And we have to be understanding of that, because yeah, people do get tired and it is exhausting talking about things, especially if it's part of their identity. It's much easier for a white person to come away from a conversation about race and be able to just keep on living their lives not affected by that conversation, not affected by the politics and the policy and the systemic racism that exists in our world. And it's much easier for a straight cis person to walk away from a discussion about LGBTQ rights and not be affected by it, and not be affected by discrimination or people discussing whether or not your identity exists. We have to be very aware of that. And another thing, I totally get if you can't talk about politics because it's unsafe for you. If talking about politics severely affects your mental health or threatens your safety, then obviously don't talk about it. I want to make that clear that this video is trying to mobilise people who do have a choice whether or not they can talk about politics to do so, because it's better the more people who talk about it. But yes, if you can't, if it puts you in danger, don't talk about politics. Learn about politics, discuss it with the people you know, and practice at better discussions. So you can start with people who you trust and think you agree with more, and then build up to people you know that you are quite different, have quite different political views. Please talk about politics. If you care about your needs, your rights, your freedoms, please talk about politics, because the more we talk about it, the more we can grow, the more we can learn, the more we can progress. And the better informed our decisions can be, the better our policy will be, the better our future will be. please talk about politics. So update on the door, I didn't really fix it. Well, I kind of actually. These nails just wouldn't go in. I got one nail in and the rest just would not go into the middle bit. So yeah, that was a bit frustrating. I might have to borrow a drill from my dad, but we'll see how it goes. Thanks for watching my video. Check out my social media below, and there's also a couple of events. There's a virtual beach cleanup for this weekend, and there's also the school strike for climate on Friday with virtual school strike. So check out either of those if you want to get involved in creating systemic change and individual action. Thanks.